Welcome to another episode of For All Things Fastening podcast. I am your host, Cody Kent. This is the podcast where we talk about all things fastening for every industry, whether it be construction, tower, or anything in between. Today we actually have some breaking news that we have two new tower catalogs coming out this week and next, and they are the Tower Catalog Edition 22A. It is our same catalog for the tower industry. It covers all of our products, fastening, safety climb systems, our custom fab, concealment, and everything else. But we've added some new things to it. We have a new products section. We have obviously new products, updated pricing. So be looking for that to be coming out to you. You can also request one from a sales rep. But we also have a new catalog. It is our water tower catalog. It is based around everything for the water tower and tank industry. Which actually is why we have our first guest coming on today. Our guest will be talking a lot about the water tower industry and how kind of really we utilize the safety climb systems for the benefit of the customers of that industry. So it's a really good interview. We were able to talk for about 10 to 12 minutes about the safety climbs, about really the benefits and the uses of all this stuff. So without further ado, here is our guest, Calvin Carmichael. All right, so now we welcome on a very special guest, Calvin Carmichael. Calvin, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Cody.
So I know you've been working with some water tower engineers and speccing out a lot of stuff, and you've been really focusing on the safety side of a lot of that. From my understanding, it's dealing with the safety climb systems, correct?
Yeah, that's a big part of it, the flexible cable safety climb systems for the water tanks.
Okay, so what is like the importance of having something like that on a tower?
Well, obviously the safety climb is a fall protection mechanism. So in the past, they often would have a cage ladder on the water towers, and that was acceptable for OSHA regulations. So it was about five years ago, I believe it was 2016, that they changed the regulations. So the ladder cages were no longer considered adequate fall protection. So on any water tower that is a new construction or that is getting maintenance work done to it, they have to add a compliant system, which would be the safety climb system, to all the ladders on the water tower that are greater than 24 foot tall. So that's what keeps the climbers safe as they're climbing it. They have their sleeve that attaches to the cable, and they can maintain 100% tie off the entire way up the tower.
Okay, so it's really due to I mean, maybe not recent change, because you said it's about 2016, but it's due to a change that this has kind of been more of a hot topic from the recent times. Okay.
Yeah, that's right. So the change happened, I believe it was 2016, and then there's a 20-year sunset for existing equipment. But if the tank is updated with maintenance, it needs to have updated fall protection as well.
Okay. And then before we started the podcast today, we were talking a little bit about the Travel 8. I know that kind of is the focal point, or what makes our system a little bit more unique than others you see in the field. I've heard a lot about the Travel 8 energy absorber. I know it has a 10-year warranty. I know we've pushed that out in the past. But trying to understand exactly how it benefits maybe the climber or how it benefits the system itself is sometimes a little misconstrued, or maybe just not understood or not said. Can you kind of elaborate a little bit more on that for some of us?
Yeah, sure. So like you said, the Travel 8 is an energy absorber. It's at the top of the system, at the top of the cable. So if you fall on the system, that energy absorber will deploy at about 1,200 pounds of force. That pulls out, and then it will continue to pull out if there's more force applied to it. So that's good for up to 3 falls on the Travel 8. That's 3 consecutive falls. If it is falling on, it does need replaced. But if you have multiple climbers on there, hypothetically, it's still safe while they're on the system if one were to fall. So I guess one of the best things about it is that when it pulls out, you can see that visually from the outside. It turns red. A climber can look at it before they climb a tower and say, that's been fallen on, that's not safe to climb. We need to remediate the system so it's safe to use again.
Yeah, I was gonna. That's something I was gonna say. I know we have a couple set up on some towers behind the building, and that is true. It is very visible to see. I mean, obviously it's a shortened tower
Yep.
for marketing purposes, but just being on job sites, it is something that's weirdly enough that's only maybe a foot long or whatever, but that bright red does stick out. So I do agree with that. And then we were kind of talking a little bit too about some of the stuff that go along with the tower. I don't want to call them accessories, but like I know one was the ladder gate. This has been something that on our team we've been seeing a lot because obviously we're getting a little bit more on job sites, so we're able to see them. But from my understanding, it does what it says it does. It just locks the ladder from being accessed when, say, someone's not on site, or is it?
Yeah, so it's basically an aluminum shield that goes over the bottom of the ladder. They're 8 foot tall. You can lock them with a paddle lock in 1 or 2 places. So mostly it's to prevent unwanted access to the tower. So either vandals or people just wanting to climb it to prevent them from being able to go up there. So that's the main reason for the ladder guard, just to help protect the asset.
Yeah, because obviously the tower owner would become liable if somebody were to sneak on and start climbing and get injured, correct?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so obviously it's a monetary thing, let alone that you would care about that person's safety. But yeah, it was kind of funny when we were talking about that too. This ladder lacking gate, I got this image in the back of my head of like just somebody randomly, like you could think of somebody stumbling around and you go, oh, hey, look, I got a ladder here to climb. So something like that in the back of my head. I don't know why I went that way, but obviously it serves that pretty decent purpose. We were talking about some other things too. I want to say one was like a frost-free vent, or maybe even like a manway cover.
Yeah, that's right. So usually when the safety climbs get replaced, that's because they're maintaining the tower, which usually means they're painting it. So when they come in to paint the towers, there's a few different things that they look for. The inspector, when they come to write a report on what needs to be done to the tower. So usually they're looking at the paint, and then if it needs painted, they're going to look at the vents. So what you're talking about is the vent on the top of the towers. Some of them have older vents that can be clogged by ice and snow, which if that happens, you can have a vacuum in the tank, and it can cause the tank to be damaged. And then there's also the overflow pipe vents, and then the access manways. So when they come in to repaint one of these water towers, they might have to put on the safety climbs, the vents, the manways, all as part of that maintenance job.
And when you're saying repainting, you mean some of the inside too, right?
Yeah, so when they repaint it, they usually would paint the whole tower inside and out.
Okay. So they're basically draining the water and that manway access point, which for anybody that's in the industry, I'm sure that's a pretty common term or whatever. But for those that don't know, a little bit more like myself, that's basically how they get into access inside the tower.
Yeah, that's right. So there'll be like around 30 bolts. They'll unbolt it, open take the cover off the manway. Usually be at the top of the tank, in the ceiling of the tank. And then they'll come in, they'll sandblast the tank, and then repaint it.
Okay.
So.
And you were saying, so this is at the top of the tank. I mean, I'm a novelist here, but the tank's curved. I've seen, obviously, a lot of our stuff is pretty linear.
Vertical.
It goes, yeah, well, vertical, sure, but it's in a straight line.
Yes.
For the most part, it goes straight up the tower. Obviously, if it curves,
yes.
How does that, to me, that's like I don't know, does it stop midway or?
So basically, we have a curve mount safety climb, if that's what you're wondering about the safety climb. So when you're climbing on the curved ladders, there's generally a ladder that starts vertical and then goes to the very center of the top of the tower on the curved top towers, on the dome top towers. So then they can access that manway from the very point there, and they can stay tied onto that safety climb until they're at the top of the tower.
Okay, so there is something, at least, then that gets you from basically, because most water towers, correct, you're climbing up the actual first ladder that used to have the cage on it, and then you're on a little bit of a platform, typically, correct?
Yes.
And then you have the actual tank, which they can continue to climb. Okay. Yes. So that at least makes a little bit more sense to me on that end. And kind of to switch gears a little bit away from some of that, I did see that we had some safety climbs or whatever on a pretty cool looking tower recently.
On the corn cob?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. You seem to know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
So,
so that was the, every year, Tnemec has a contest for the Tank of the Year. And I believe that one was in Rochester, Minnesota. And it's shaped like a corn cob, pretty cool looking tower. And our safety climbs, I believe there's either 3 or 4 on that tower. I think that tower was built quite a long time ago. And they wanted to preserve it just because it's an iconic tower in the town. I believe it's at some kind of grain facility, which is why it's shaped like a corn cob.
yeah, yeah, it makes sense. Obviously, I saw the picture of it, and initially I was kind of, when I was scrolling through, I was like, what in the world am I looking at? And then you kind of realize that there's a tower that looks like a corn cob, which is kind of rather weird, niche, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, they come in all sizes and types. There's one down in Florida near Disney there that's shaped like Mickey Mouse.
Well, yeah, of course, yeah.
There's all sorts of ones that come up in that tank contest every year. It's not a tower, but one of the tower tank companies that we work with, they made a baseball bat for the Louisville Sluggers museum down in Louisville. So doesn't hold water, but it's sort of a tank.
No, I guess that's true. That's pretty cool though. They come in those weird shapes and sizes, and it's kind of neat that like all fasteners can say we have a hand in. Obviously, we are not in the construction of the actual tower itself, but to say that we have, something that's on that tower is rather cool, especially considering that it's trying to be preserved not just now, but for the rest of its lifespan, and many lifespans to come. That we have kind of one of the main integral parts of safety on that tower. So that's actually really cool. One of the only last things I really wanted to ask you before I let you go was obviously with the water, we just to jump back, we were talking about the inside, they access a lot of stuff. Because of the water, there's probably some sort of there could be obviously corrosion issues. So I would imagine a lot of this stuff is stainless steel. Like, do we get into all stainless steel? I know when we talk a lot with some people in the marine industry, how much they utilize stainless steel. So I would have to imagine offering or having stainless steel options is a yes.
Yeah, that's right. So the inside of the tank is painted. The ladders are painted steel, but for the potable water applications on the interior tank ladders, we do have a full stainless steel system. So that Travelate energy absorber we were talking about, that is made from stainless steel. So that's not going to corrode. All the brackets are stainless steel, the cable's stainless steel. So that's all safe for potable water and will last quite a long time, even though it's submerged.
Nice, because I was going to say, I know, I've seen, obviously, we have the galvanized wire cable, and then we also have the stainless steel version. But typically the hardware is almost always hot dipped galvanized.
Yeah, that's
so
right.
That's kind of where the confusion for me came. So it was kind of nice to have that kind of cleared up for me. But Calvin, I don't want to hold you much longer. You've been a very pleasant guest here on our podcast today. So I thank you. I hope you'll come back on. Well, I'd love to get more into this water tower stuff, especially as we continue to progress through a lot of this, and as anything kind of changes, I'd love to have you back on and talk about all other stuff. So Calvin, thank you for coming on. You get to put another notch on your bedpost or whatever, saying that you are yet another member of the For All Things Fastening podcast. So Calvin, thank you again, and we'll see you next time.
All right, thanks, Cody.
Thank you. Well, that was our interview with Calvin Carmichael. I thought it went really well. We were able to talk about some of the water tower stuff that I had questions about. I'm sure hopefully some of you in the industry do, and probably a lot of you outside of that industry obviously had questions on. But that's our show today. So you can obviously find our podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcast, Amazon Podcast, and Google Podcasts, as well as we do have the video streaming always on our website as well. But until next time, I've been your host, Cody Kent. We'll see you next time on For All Things Fastening Podcast.